Fiona.
Stav, thanks very much. That is the BBC News at 6. You can keep up with all the latest developments on the BBC website. But from the 6 team, it's goodbye, and the news continues here on BBC One. It's time to join our colleagues across the nations and regions for the news where you are. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Fiona. Welcome to Look East. Tonight, our exclusive report inside a care home at the centre of the UK's biggest outbreak of the new COVID variant.
We were very shocked, but luckily we didn't actually find the results out until the COVID outbreak was over and done with. So it gave us time to kind of absorb that information and go, oh, okay. But yeah, it was a big shock.
5 people were hospitalised. Thankfully, they've all recovered. Also in the programme, the Wellingborough MP Peter Bone denies he's a bully after being recommended for suspension from the House of Commons. Claims of a so-called gay tax, the extra costs facing same-sex couples wanting to start a family.
And we're at the Royal and Derngate Theatre in Northampton, which has been closed for 6 weeks over worries about RAC. Tonight, though, the curtain will go up again.
Thanks for joining us. The manager of a Norfolk care home has spoken of her shock at finding out they were at the centre of the UK's biggest outbreak of the new COVID variant. Last month, Shipton Manor had more than 80% of the cases that were found in the country. 5 residents were hospitalised, but the good news is they've all recovered and are back at the home. Our reporter Robbie West has this exclusive report.
Oh, here we go. Sitting with 89-year-old Audrey, feeding the guinea pigs that have been brought in to comfort the residents, it's hard to believe that just over a month ago, this care home was the centre of the country's biggest outbreak of a new variant of COVID.
Hello, guinea pigs.
When it happened, restrictions on who came and went were put in place. Audrey told me that she loves living at Shipton Manor, but during that time, it wasn't a lot of fun.
You get up, you have your 3 meals or whatever, and you watch television. It's not wildly exciting.
And what was the staff like during that time?
Oh, they're lovely. Yes, they're very kind.
Now, it's past, it's back to normal, and you can have things like the guinea pigs coming back. It's good, isn't it?
Oh, no, that's lovely.
In September, Look East reported on the UK Health and Security Agency's data that showed more than 80% of the cases across the country were in Norfolk.
There have been 28 confirmed cases at an unnamed care home.
That care home has been revealed to be Shipton Manor. Speaking for the first time, the manager explained how staff noticed residents were showing cold and flu-like symptoms.
And as the day went on, more and more people became down poorly, and then it started affecting staff as well. So we contacted UK Health Protection and said we want to do some sequencing because it's spreading very fast. It was more of the transmission rate that was the major concern.
And how are the residents now who tested positive?
They've all recovered, and they've been doing fine.
It was the biggest outbreak in the country. You were the epicentre of the outbreak. When you hear that, what do you think?
We were very shocked, but luckily we didn't actually find the results out until the COVID outbreak was over and done with. So it gave us time to kind of absorb that information and go, oh, okay. But yeah, it was a big shock.
Both residents and staff are pleased that everyone has recovered, and the local council has praised the care home.
Can I sit beside you? Is that all right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Scientists say it's still too early to know what impact the new variant will have this winter. But what happened at this care home has shown positive signs for the whole country. Robbie West, BBC Look East at Shipton Manor.
Well, our health correspondent Nikki Fox is here, and Nikki, we heard in Robbie's report that the home didn't know until quite late on that they had the new COVID variant, but I guess it's reassuring that they all recovered.
Yeah, it is really positive. Now, this new strain that they've caught is called Corolla, that's what it's been nicknamed, and there's no evidence to suggest it make people more seriously ill. Sometimes the threat from a new strain can be a bit over exaggerated because there is an unknown there. But that's why the government decided to bring forward the vaccination programme for over 65s and the more vulnerable. So it gives them time to build up immunity just in case there is a bit of a problem with this strain. Out of the 54 known cases across the country of this strain, though, thankfully nobody has died.
How big an issue is COVID at the moment?
Well, the number of people searching for COVID symptoms has doubled in the past month, so that gives you some idea. Also, the number of people being admitted for COVID has increased, but the number's nowhere near as high as it was earlier in the year, and nothing like it was during the peak of the last during the last peak in January 2021. It can still be risky though for the vulnerable. That's why you're being advised to stay at home if you have got a temperature.
Nikki, thank you very much. There's uncertainty over the future of one of our MPs tonight. Peter Bone, the MP for Wellingborough, is facing a 6-week ban from the House of Commons over allegations of bullying and sexual misconduct. He says the allegations are without foundation. Our political editor, Andrew Sinclair, is in our newsroom now, and he is a well-known political figure, isn't he?
Yeah, he's been an MP for 18 years. He has a majority of 18,500. In Parliament, he's well known for his laconic style. He's a great champion of backbenchers. He's on the right of the Conservative Party. You may remember he was a leading Brexiteer. Now, these allegations against him are historic. They come from a former staffer, and according to the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards who investigated them, Mr Bone committed 4 acts of bullying, including verbal belittling, ridiculing and humiliating the member of staff. He also hit him and threw things at him, and there's also an allegation of sexual misconduct. Now, the body that oversees all this is recommending to Parliament that Mr Bone be suspended from the House of Commons for 6 weeks. If MPs agree, that would trigger a recall petition and a possible by-election.
And what has Mr Bone himself had to say?
Well, he's issued a pretty angry statement tonight saying that none of the misconduct allegations ever took place. They're false and untrue without foundation, he says. And he goes on to say that during the inquiry, witness statements were submitted from 10 of his staff who testified to the professional, accommodating and friendly place his office is to work. Parliament will probably discuss these allegations next week, and that's when they'll vote on whether or not to suspend him.
And meanwhile, Andrew, the attention of the political world is turning to Mid-Bedfordshire, isn't it?
Yes, as you may have heard earlier, we're into the final days of the Mid-Bedfordshire campaign. That's Nadine Dorries' old seat. And yesterday, in a special debate on Politics East, the candidates clashed over one of the big issues in this election: housing. This is the Wixhams in Mid-Bedfordshire, a new development in the countryside. And as we reported on Friday, many of the promised facilities haven't materialised.
I was expecting there to be a railway station, a GP surgery, a pharmacy, more shops. What we were promised by the builders, that all of this is going to be here almost on day one, and the reality, perhaps we shouldn't have believed the promises that were made to us.
Where would you build the houses that I'm guessing you recognise need to be built?
Yes, absolutely, we need housing.
It's a question that's been asked throughout this campaign. The parties know their answers may well determine how people vote on Thursday.
If we keep building at the rate that we are doing here in Mid-Beds, we're never going to have enough GP surgeries. We're never going to have enough transportation links.
We have had years and years of a Conservative government that has allowed developers to build what they want, wherever they want, and ignored our community. We will hand power back to communities so that they have a say over what is built.
We need to have sensible reform of the green belt so that land that is clearly not beautiful countryside is brought back into the housing stock. It's unacceptable that car parks, petrol stations on the outskirts of London aren't being built on.
But what about the promised facilities for places like the Wixhams? The smaller parties blamed the Westminster parties for not taking the issue seriously enough.
We've seen retrenchment of health services all through a Conservative government that started in the Labour government. They keep pumping money into this, but we're not seeing anything.
We need more houses extended onto existing housing stock, like in the towns and cities, that actually carries on the soul of the community.
All we can do is make sure that if developments go ahead, that they are better considered for the people who will be living there.
The last MP was sometimes accused of neglecting her constituency, something she always denied. But all the candidates used yesterday's debate to stress their visibility and commitment should they be elected. There's not long to go. Andrew Sinclair, BBC Look East.
And you can see that Politics East debate on the BBC iPlayer, and there are a total of 13 candidates standing in this week's by-election. Here they all are. You can find out more about them and their views on issues like housing by going to the BBC News website and searching for Mid-Bedfordshire. Time now for a quick roundup of some other news. The Chief Constable of Northamptonshire Police has been suspended. An independent investigation is underway into Nick Adderley's conduct following claims he's misrepresented his military service. A home has been gutted in Essex after an e-bike burst into flames whilst being charged. The fire broke out at the house in Lundy Close in Eastwood in Southend yesterday morning. The bike was only 2 weeks old and had been bought from a cycle shop. 5 pets were rescued, but a cat has since died.
Bought a new bike, bless me, saved up for it, done all the right thing. It's got insurance on it, everything, you know, thought it was hunky-dory, and yeah. I know they go through certain tests, but they can't be safe. That's all you're hearing. And when the fire brigade spoke to us yesterday, he said they're dealing with it every week.
A vulnerable stretch of coastline in Norfolk has been further hit by erosion. At least 2 more metres of sandy cliff, along with 2 sheds and part of a road, have been lost to the sea at Hemsby. Lesbian couples say they're being priced out of starting a family by what they've called a gay tax. It means they have to pay tens of thousands of pounds for private fertility treatment to qualify for NHS support. 1 year after the government promised to remove financial barriers, BBC Analysis has found just 4 areas in England actually offer equal access to all. Lauren Moss has been speaking to a couple in Norwich.
Baby. He wakes up in the morning and he's smiling at you.
Yeah. Kate and Kerry always dreamed of having children, but as a lesbian couple, they knew it would be a challenge and expensive.
It was a big emotional roller coaster, and you find that something you want so badly, it's all you seem to think about.
To save for their future, they moved to China, where they worked for a couple of years as teachers before returning home to Norwich. They got married and began looking into starting a family.
I remember going to the GP about this, and he told me quite quickly, you will not be eligible on the NHS.
How much has IVF cost you?
We've worked out between 17 and 20,000.
Because they're a same-sex couple, to qualify for NHS support, Kate and Kerry would have had to medically prove they can't have children naturally first by paying privately for multiple failed rounds of artificial insemination, which includes buying sperm and medication for treatment. Unlike many heterosexual couples without children, who can get help after trying to conceive naturally for 1 or 2 years.
We didn't expect to get everything given to us for free. The extortionate prices that we've had to pay, not just for the treatment itself, but for all the meds that go along with it.
I think it is quite harsh that we have to spend an awful lot of our own money to have what heterosexual couples can get for free, pretty much.
Laura Rose set up a support group for LGBTQ+ people after she and her wife took out loans and saved thousands of pounds for their own treatment.
Having a family and a child, we feel is a human right, and that human right is being taken away from people in our community.
You're a good boy.
Do you feel that gay couples are being priced out of starting a family?
Absolutely, and especially if it doesn't work soon on and you have to keep going and going. When do you say stop? How many loans do you take out before you say enough is enough? That's not fair in my mind, it's not.
The Department of Health and Social Care says it expects the variations in fertility services to start improving this year. Overall, though, it's part of a 10-year strategy, which means many gay couples could be timed out of having their dream family.
Stay with us, there's lots more to come. Jules will have the weather for the week ahead. And we're at the Royal and Derngate as the theatre reopens after concerns over rack concrete. Now, would you know how to save somebody's life if you saw them having a cardiac arrest? Well, that's exactly what happened to Peter Morris from Essex, whose life was saved by a passerby when he collapsed in the street 3 years ago. This afternoon, I spoke to him and his wife and a paramedic from the Essex and Herts Air Ambulance. It's to mark Restart a Heart Day, which encourages people to learn how to do CPR.
I just went down, everything went blank, and that was the last I knew for the for then until 2 weeks later when I was recovered in hospital.
And I know, Jackie, that you tried to help. You tried to do a form of CPR, but you yourself were out of action with a bad shoulder.
Yes, I'd had shoulder surgery and I got a replacement knee and I couldn't kneel and I couldn't push. And I was really frantic thinking, well, this was my opportunity. I didn't know what had happened to Pete, but I knew that he was dying because I could see he was. But thankfully, a passerby was at hand and who could take over for me whilst we called the ambulance.
So this is Andy, who's a hairdresser.
Yes.
And he happened to be trained in CPR.
Yes.
Afterwards, Pete, when you were recovering, what did the medics say about that CPR and the difference it made?
The difference was, if it wasn't for the CPR, I wouldn't be here, because he performed CPR for some 10-15 minutes. I went into hospital dead and came out alive.
It's an absolutely extraordinary story, and it's so wonderful to see you looking so well, you know, nearly 3 years on. I mean, Jackie, what does it mean to you what Andy did?
For us, he was our guardian angel that day, and he knows that too. We've been married 48 years this year, and I can't tell you how thankful we are.
The fact is that all of us could be a guardian angel, so I'm going to go and find out how we need to go about it. But thank you for coming and talking to us.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to tell our story.
Adam, you're from the Essex and Herts Air Ambulance, which actually went to Pete. Show us with this what needs to be done, because everyone can actually do it if they know how.
Absolutely, and bystander CPR is absolutely what saves lives. So we're going to assume that we've recognised that this person's in cardiac arrest. So we go for the landmark. It's the standard adult male. If you were to draw a line between the nipples and then you've got the hard sternum in the middle of the chest there, you're looking at the palm of your hand on the centre of that line, one hand on top of the other, doesn't matter over which way you go, with your knees right in tucked close to the toes to the person, arms locked out. You're looking at pushing. You're going about 100 beats per minute, so just under 2 a second, and you're looking at about 2.5 inches in depth. So it's pretty hard work.
I have to take over at exactly the right time, don't I?
It's about being coordinated. So I'm going to count down from 3, and when I get to 0, I'd like you to take over. Okay, 3, 2, 1, 0.
It is really hard work, it's very tiring, and you need to keep it going for quite a while, don't you?
Exactly, because you think what you're trying to do, you're trying to build up the pressure in the system, okay? You're trying to squeeze the heart and eject the blood out. So the whole idea of this is about buying time for the patient, is getting oxygenated blood flowing around the brain.
I'm going to stop that, because we also need to talk about defibrillators, because they're actually all over the place and they can be really handy in cardiac arrest situations.
Absolutely, you've got the public access defibrillators. They're the ones you see on the side of community centres, in train stations. They're behind that lock box, behind the heart with the lightning bolt going through it. It's absolutely essential that you know where your closest public access defib is to where you live. You can go on a local website, the PAD website, and put your postcode in and that will tell you where. But if you are out and about and you don't know, you can just ring 999. When you're on the phone to them, they will tell you where the closest one is to you. They'll give you the code. And if there's more than one of you there, then absolutely one of you should go and get it.
Adam, thank you so much.
No problem.
I just love Pete and Jackie's story, and well done, Andy, who we didn't get to speak to, but we all think is a hero. Sport now, and the main focus at the weekend was rugby, with England making it through to the World Cup semi-finals. Closer to home, Cambridge are gearing up for their first game in the Championship this weekend. They're at training at their ground tonight, and Tom Williams is there. Tom.
Hi Susie, thank you. Welcome to El Gaya Fields, home to Cambridge Rugby Club. It's going to be a busy night down here. We've got the under-16 and under-18s women who are training. I'm on the men's training pitch here. Seen a bit of kicking practice. A few of the players are doing some final warm-ups ahead of their championship opener against Ampthill this weekend. I'm joined by the Cambridge Director of Rugby, Richie Williams. Evening, Richie. How much are you looking forward to this weekend's opening test?
Yeah, I think the club are massively excited by the whole week. It's been a long time coming. I think coming off the back of the win last season against Moseley to clinch National 1, we've had a full summer of preparation, and the excitement now is palpable amongst the players, but also the whole club as well.
You've got some pictures actually of that big win to secure the title last year. Fantastic scenes. Just how big is the step up to Tier 2 rugby?
Yeah, it's huge, and I think what we're going into now is almost a league within a league. There are a number of teams that are full-time professional teams. ourselves and Amptill are still semi-professional. We're training 3 nights a week, so it's going to be a huge step up for us. I think physically there's going to be a huge difference from what we experienced last season, but you know, I'm a firm believer that the squad of players that we've assembled in the off-season, plus the players that have been here for a number of seasons, will put us in a really strong position to be competitive this season.
So Amptill first up, yeah, so how much of a gauge will that be in terms of where you are?
Yes, it's a really good benchmark for us, and we played Amptill probably 3 years ago. They've been on a similar journey to ourselves. They've come up through the leagues, they've been in the Championship now for 3 or 4 seasons, and they've done reasonably well. So for us, it's a really good test first up. It's a shame that we're not at home the first week, but you know, we're going to somewhere where we've had some success previously. The last 2 occasions we've played there, we've picked up some positive results. So, you know, hopefully Saturday, off the back of a really good training week this week, we'll put ourselves in a really strong position come Saturday.
Okay, great. Richie, stay with me. Let's just talk about the World Cup, because England booked their semi-final spot against South Africa after squeezing past Fiji. It was tight, it was tense. Eventually they came through. Here are the thoughts of the England and Northampton forward, Courtney Laws.
It was hard fought. You know, the Fijians are a great team, fully deserved this quarter-final. I think they've been fantastic and great to watch. So, you know, credit to them, and yeah, just want to say thank you to them for a great game.
So it's the semi-finals next for England. Richie's still with me. Are you surprised they've got this far?
In all honesty, yes. I think looking at the journey that England have been on, probably the last 6 months, I think their form in the Six Nations was not great, and I think even some of the group games that they've had at the World Cup, they flattered to deceive. But to get into a semi-final at a World Cup is a huge achievement, and I think they're going to be very confident now going into the semi-final next Saturday.
Brilliant. Okay, Richie, well, best of luck for the season. Thanks ever so much for having us down here this evening. Staying with rugby, of course, Northampton were missing a few of their players who are on World Cup duty for their Premiership opener at Sale. Spirited effort. In fact, Saints scored first through Tommy Freeman. Sale, though, went over 3 times before James Ram set up a tense finish, but Saints lost by 20 points to 15. On to football, MK Dons are looking for a new head coach after sacking their boss Graham Alexander today. He's only been there for 16 games, but Saturday's 2-2 draw with Barrow was his final one. They threw away a 2-goal lead. They've failed to win any of their last 8 league matches and are down to 16th in League 2. It wasn't a great weekend all round. Stevenage and Colchester lost heavily. Colchester's boss is under pressure, and despite a first goal in 16 years for defender Michael Morrison, and what a goal, Cambridge conceded 2 minutes from time as they continue to slide down the table. OK, that's it. Training here at Cambridge about to get underway. Not something I want to get involved in because there's some pretty big guys. I'll take a watching brief tonight.
Very wise, Tom. Thank you. The Royal and Derngate Theatre in Northampton reopens its doors tonight after being forced to close when rack concrete was discovered. It's been just over a month since it shut as part of nationwide fears over the safety of buildings with the crumbling concrete. It's hosting a production of Murder in the Dark, as Kate Bradbrook has been finding out.
It's back to business here at the Royal in Derngate, 6 weeks to the day since it was forced to close due to rack. Now ready to welcome audiences once again.
So we've actually moved more than 30 shows and actually 60 film screenings for our Northampton Film House that either had to be cancelled or moved. And that's always challenging because some people aren't able to make the new dates, so you end up refunding. Fortunately, that when we can move things really helps us limit the financial impact. But being closed for any period, it obviously has a big impact on what our yearly budgets look like.
So are you concerned about that?
I am concerned about that. We're always, as we grow post-COVID, keeping an eye on those budgets, trying to understand trends in ticket buying, particularly with the cost of living crisis.
Another challenge has been logistics. This is 2 theatres in one. The Royal dates back to the 1800s, while the Derngate was built in 1983, when rack was widely used.
The Derngate Auditorium behind me reopens next week. And when it does, these doors will remain closed because of rack in the foyer. Audience members will instead enter through a number of different routes, including the fire exits.
But for this week, the Royal kicks off with a production of Murder in the Dark, starring Susie Blake, best known for her roles in Coronation Street and Mrs Brown's Boys.
It's always exciting to be the first people into a theatre when it's been shut for renovations, because the audience are excited about seeing what's different and what's new, and they're all coming in a different way, so that'll be interesting. And you've got a very good audience base here. There are certain theatres that you always look forward to going to because there's a kind of community feeling. People want to go and see as much as they can.
Meanwhile, work continues here to allow the rest of the building to reopen. For now, scaffolding will be used to secure areas containing rack. In the lead up to the busy Christmas season, the good news is that the shows must go on. Kate Bradbrook, BBC Look East.
Let's get a look at the weather. And oh, it was chilly. I've actually had to put the heating on this morning, I admit it.
I was scraping this morning. Yeah, the first widespread frost of the season last night. Santon Downham on the Suffolk-Norfolk border recording the lowest overnight temperature in the UK, -2 there. So a chilly start to the day, but a beautiful sunrise for many of us. But there has been quite a lot of cloud out there today. The pumpkin's certainly brightening up the field here at Chesterton in Cambridgeshire, and temperatures really struggling, only up to about 10 to 13 degrees Celsius. So tonight we'll have a few showers drifting in off the North Sea, but for most of us it'll be dry, some clear spells, perhaps a bit of patchy mist, and not as cold as last night with lows of around 6 to 10 Celsius. And then tomorrow this low pressure system pulling up from the south, introducing some rain into Ireland and the southwest of the UK. But for us, tomorrow will be a fine and dry day. We'll have some areas of cloud, but also some spells of October sunshine. Temperatures will be a degree or so higher compared to today, but it will be windier, with those east to southeasterlies gusting 30 to 35 miles an hour. We might see something even stronger around the coast. And then on Wednesday, this system tied in with Storm Babette is set to bring us some rain late on in the day. But I think for many of us, Wednesday during daylight hours will be fine and dry with some sunshine, but cloudy increasing from the southwest. Perhaps a few showers ahead of this main band of rain, which will move through Wednesday evening and night. Those winds gusting again 30 to 40 miles an hour and tending to turn more southerly as that rain moves through. And then some heavy showers on Thursday, and then from Thursday evening through until 6 o'clock on Saturday morning we have a yellow Met Office warning in place for heavy rain. It at the moment covers Northamptonshire, Cambridgeshire, Norfolk and Suffolk. So as I said, on Thursday some potentially heavy and thundery showers, and then some more widespread rain expected Friday into Saturday. And that's when at the moment we're expecting the strongest winds around the coast. We could have gusts of around 50 to 60 miles per hour. So some big waves potentially with those easterly winds. Not good news for places like Hemsby, and possibly some more rain around on Sunday. And as for your overnight lows, well, after that very chilly night last night, some much milder nights on the way. And that's your forecast. Susie.
That is quite a week of weather, isn't it? Thanks, Jules. That's all from us. Have a very good evening. Goodbye.